Hello wildflowers, and welcome back to winter at Belladonna Cottage. In this episode, we'll be giving my bedroom a moody Victorian romantic academia makeover, indulging my penchant for a decor that would make the Brontë sisters weep and Stoker scribble wistfully in his notebook. We'll scour the antique stores and breathe new life into forgotten objects, some of which were haunted by more than just newspaper tatters, cobwebs and dust. Decorating with old and second-hand furniture is not only a creative pursuit, delighting my inner historian and sparking my imagination, but a practical solution for a vintage rose on a shoestring budget. So, we'll begin at the local antique store, a place where an Antipodean witch with a love of nostalgia could really lose herself. One of my tips when searching the thrift store is to keep your chosen era in mind. It is easy to get distracted by things from the 60s and 70s, but when this happens, I just ask myself, would Mary Shelley have listened to ABBA? No, Nancy, I don't think so. Pop it back. The next tip, so as not to get overwhelmed, is to focus on a small colour palette and cast your eyes about for those particular hues and shades. For me, I wanted tones of deep plum, dusty rose and dark green, and the timber colour I desired was dark mahogany or walnut. You could even pop paint swatches in your satchel as a reference. Be it light, dark or romantic, academia is an aesthetic for old world book lovers and scholars, students of history, science, arts and literature. Think like a haunted poet scribbling away with a quill or tapping on a vintage typewriter, collecting stacks of cloth or leather-bound books, botanical illustrations and curious antiquities. And because I'm going for a romantic twist on this theme, of course there will be that hallmark celebration of art and beauty, with feminine, Regency-style elements, ornately carved furniture, sparkling crystalware and lush floral prints, like the gorgeous upholstery on this nursing chair. You may recall when I first moved into this 103-year-old cottage back in April that I first took inspiration for my colour palette from a charming bedspread covered in pansies, peonies, violets and bluebells. I loved how the soft powdery blue looked against the dark cherry and violet, with pops of forest green and even, surprisingly, a hint of lemon yellow. I next spent some time making a vision board on Pinterest and studying all of the different colour combinations, furniture styles and decor objects that I loved most. I was also really inspired by Jacqueline's interior design tips over on Dantier Balogh, which I watch on repeat, jotting ideas into a notepad. Inspired by the magnolia blooms outside my window, I settled on a shade of dusty rose with a violet undertone for the bedroom walls. I couldn't think of anything more romantic and opulent to set the stage for this Victorian dream bedroom, and it seemed to work beautifully against the dark mahogany timber of the antique dresser. I have used tint paints for so many projects on this channel because it is the one paint that does not give this sensitive soul a raging migraine and sore throat. It is 99% VOC free and comes in so many beautiful colours, but they also make custom colours and will match almost any shade you desire. So when I asked, can you make me something like hygge but slightly more purple? this is what they came up with: coffee rose, and I absolutely adore it. Now, I did have a little help off camera with this part of the makeover. No, not from Noah, although I was delighted that he didn't step in a paint tray and run through the house. It was my uncle, who I'm ever so grateful lives just 5 minutes away and has been quite the superhero lately because, as with all vintage ladies, Belladonna Cottage sometimes falls apart at the seams. And whilst she can be forgiven, I mean, don't we all fall apart sometimes? I have no idea how to fix her when things go wrong that are out of my expertise. Once the paint was dry, it was time to decorate. Starting with the soft furnishings, I chose heritage-style floral linens and quilted pillows with frilly, scalloped or piped edges. And though the sheets were new, they were discounted, and this gorgeous pillow from the local op shop was just 50 cents. For this corner, I found a beautiful nursing chair with intricately woven upholstery that matched the headboard. And for my witchy trinkets, this gorgeous, shabby Queen Anne style side table. I had to have this ornate oval mirror and a crystal vase for my beloved flowers. Now, I know it's rather obscure, but one of the most expensive items was this rusty bird cage, complete with spider webs, to decorate my curiosities cabinet. Along with some well-worn books, everything else here was a gift from my mum, my sister, and the beautiful embroidered tablecloth is from a darling viewer. Thanks, Fiona. I absolutely love it. You might recall these delightful antique Baroque silk prints I found at an op shop back in the Shire last year. These beauties, like all of the small items you'll see around the bedroom, the fabric flowers, picture frames, old books, crystalware and figurines, were all thrifted for under $10. I love having a few pretty hiding places for all my enchanted objects and jewellery, but would you believe this little witch has only 2 necklaces, one of which is a labradorite fairy portal to another dimension. Of course I would prefer real fresh flowers in my bedroom, but in the depths of winter I think these will do just nicely, don't you? They certainly match the colour palette. My favourite statement pieces in the bedroom were actually the cheapest of all because I found them gathering dust in my parents' garage. They snapped up this antique dresser and ornate mirror years ago at an estate sale auction and, to my delight, gave them to me, simply happy to see them loved again. The most expensive item was this curiosities cabinet that I swear my spirit guides directed me to just a few weeks ago, and, for a little extra storage, a vintage suitcase for this little lady to store her lacy lingerie and bathing suits. Sadly, there were just some things I had to buy brand new for the bedroom, but to be honest, I regretted almost every one of them. They just don't make things like they used to. I searched high and low for a second-hand wardrobe that I could afford and that would suit this space, but after 4 months of storing my dresses in a cardboard box, I finally relented and bought this cheap clothes rack as a temporary fix. After assembly though, I really wasn't happy with the look and decided to try a dark mahogany timber stain to see if I could make it feel a little more antique-y. Boy, was I shocked at the toxic smell of this stuff and the less than ideal finish. But I know the right wardrobe will come up eventually, and at least all my cottagecore dresses have a place to call home. My next project was to decorate the walls with a collection of framed art gathered from the op shops and some from a yard sale where they were left out on the nature strip in a box of junk. I won't show you what was on the other side of this canvas because it was super creepy and according to the other half of my heart, most definitely haunted. I didn't get that vibe myself, but just to be sure, I took one of my homegrown herbal smoke wands and said a little prayer over the remnants before continuing on with my crafting. Originally, my plan was to put a new print in this frame, but after looking at it and considering, I decided to try something different and hang some dried flowers or herbs from the picture hook instead. In some cases, the frames were beautiful, but the pictures were not, and so I cut out scenes from old Reader's Digest art prints and used those instead. I didn't end up using everything, but it gave me a lot of options to work with, and I can always save the rest of the frames for another project. Perhaps you can tell me in the comments below, which room would you like to see me make over next? Next, it was time to hang them, and once again, this part of the makeover took a lot longer than anticipated. In the interest of keeping it real and possibly entertaining you all, I decided to include some scenes of my process here. But believe me, this is still the shortened version of the picture wall fiasco. There were certainly a lot of moments, hand on hip, where, as my dad would say, I had to think. With a tape measure and a pencil and a little imagination, it all came together, but I really had to eyeball it for the most part and make it up as I went along. I knew I'd only get one chance of hammering in these picture hooks, as this old-fashioned plaster can be delicate, and I dreaded the thought of repatching and painting. At one point, after destroying 3 nails and losing a picture hook into the ether, I had to throw my hands up in the air in exasperation and take a small break. But in the end, I was so pleased with the way it turned out, and I felt rather lucky to have found artwork that seemed to perfectly match my romantic academia aesthetic. The botanical style illustrations of flora and fauna and the old world paintings of flowers just worked beautifully. A wise woman I know recently observed that I'm a bit of an overthinker. She is right, but I can only hope it's a quality as infuriating as it is adorable. I think my favourite piece was this print of the two little yellow robins. The burgundy mount set against the golden frame was simply perfect, and the colour of their feathers picked up on the yellow in the bedspread. I had to wing it a little to make this idea work, but luckily the frame itself obscured any messiness. I found these twigs of honesty at the local florist for just 50 cents each. I felt they added a delicate, almost ethereal beauty to this corner of the room, and I love the symbolism of this flower. I fancy the translucent seed pods are like tiny oval mirrors for fairies and angels that come to gaze in wonder at their own reflections, while this little rose is dreaming away in bed. There was one final thing on my wish list for the bedroom, a place to hang my coats and scarves. So when I spotted these brass hooks on Etsy, I just had to have them. Unfortunately, this last edition created another mini renovation problem and a further delay to the bedroom makeover. What began as a little paint flaking off the door led me to discover layers and layers of shoddy paintwork on top of some original old-fashioned enamel. So I had to roll up my sleeves again and sand and scrape the entire door down and start over. In a way, it was lucky because this little interior design emergency gave me the chance to call up my friends at Tint again and have some luscious plum-coloured paint express shipped. It was a delicate process and required 3 coats and several different sized brushes and rollers, but I think it adds a little drama to the room and contrasts well against the brass hooks and antique gold. Even if I decide to replace all the doors in the house at a later stage, it's fun for now. After all, legend says that behind a purple door, you can be sure there is magic. Well, wildflowers, that's a wrap. Are you ready for the final reveal? What do you think? Is this the boudoir of a Victorian lady with a darkly romantic soul and a wistful poet's heart, surrounded by enchanted objects, roses, birds and beasts? I like to imagine it is. And though I may return to the bedroom with a part 2 one day, as I have dreams of a chandelier, botanical wallpaper, polished floors, a beautiful ornate rug and lace curtains, until next time, I shall bid you adieu, fellow lovers of romance and magic, and leave you with the honeyed words of Keats. I, in the very temple of delight, veiled melancholy has her sovereign shrine, though seen of none save him whose strenuous tongue can burst joy's grape against his palate fine. His soul shall taste the sadness of her might, and be among her cloudy trophies hung. I so hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you'd like to support my channel, there are lots of ways you can do so. You can like and subscribe or hit the cute little heart icon. You can join me over on Patreon for some behind the scenes content or monthly book club, or if you're in the mood for a little shopping, you can purchase my art, oracle cards and spirit paintings. I'll be sure to leave links in the description below if you'd like to take a peek at my Pinterest board or the videos by Dantier and Balogh that I mentioned earlier. I also wanted to express my gratitude to my lovely family for their time, experience, and of course for always keeping an eye out at the thrift shops and yard sales for me. There's nothing better than receiving a photo with the question, "Is this academia vibes, Nancy?" See you again next time, wildflowers. You'll never guess what I have planned next.